What is up, everybody? Welcome to Unemployable Podcast. This is a very auspicious moment in our life and careers. This is the first ever episode of the show. And I got to be honest, we are pretty excited to be here. We've just been talking off camera about, all the work that's gone into it so far. And none of us has ever run a podcast before. So this first episode is going to be a little bit different to our standard format. Today, what we really want to do for you guys watching at home is just get you to meet the other dudes on this podcast and get to know them a little bit. So just doing a quick round the table. We've got, of course, to my right, Eric Machado. What's up, Eric?
What's going on, everybody? Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too, brother. Ready to rock?
Always.
Always ready. Over here, we got James Denham, my very good mate from the country. Mr. Denham, how are you?
You're very well, thank you, Adam. And, thanks for having us here.
Yeah, make sure you follow these guys on Instagram, which we'll get the handles out soon. And of course, we've got Mark, who's come up today from Melbourne, but will soon be a Gold Coast resident with us.
Yeah. Looking forward to it. Great to be here. Yeah. First time seeing the studio today. It looks amazing.
How was it when I walked in for you? What did you think?
Looking at it all, looking at the pictures, but being in the room, it just, it's awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of fun.
So well set up.
Yeah. What about you, James? What was your first impressions when you turned up?
Well, I've seen the progress over the period of time, but when you walk in here and it's in the finished product, it's pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah.
So I've seen it, I think there was a video that you shot on Insta when you first got the keys.
Yes.
And it was just a shell. We're over Eric and
To
see
you were in the video, actually.
Yeah. To see the shell from zero to where it is today is pretty nuts.
Yeah. It's literally, this place was used for a sign cutting shop. Yeah. So there was like dirt all over the floor, and behind where you are, the wall was covered and oxidized, and that all had to be cleaned up before we got here. This whole wall here was put in from scratch with the builders. It's the whole thing's been built from the ground up. So it was pretty cool. We've done a lot of work here. Eric and his lovely wife Jen were in here with us, so it was pretty cool.
Yeah. It was fun.
So what we're going to do to kick it off is get the audience at home to just sort of get to know us a little bit more. And I think a lot of people watching, certainly early on, probably know me and my story. So I thought it might be cool to sort of each of us talk to each other a little bit about our journeys to be here, and what's your background, where you're from, and so on. So let's start with you, James. Get you out of the way first.
Sure. What do you want to know, Adam?
Where were you? Where did you grow up, and where were you born? What's your story pre-business?
I haven't grown up, so it's going to be a quick one.
Progress.
Yeah, no, born in Sydney. Then moved to the country, a little country town called Glen Innes in northern New South Wales, and was there for best part of 20 years. Then the Gold Coast for 10, North Bondi for 10, which was a pretty crazy time. Then been back here for the last 6 years.
Yeah.
So
you're a country boy at heart.
Well, yeah, there's got a few of those traits there, which is good to have.
Yeah. Tell us about what you're doing now. Like you're in the healthcare space. You just acquired a company and you're improving it. What are you doing at the moment?
Yeah, so we looked into I sold a couple of companies year before last, and took 6 months out to work out what I wanted to do for the next good 5 to 10, and spent a fair bit of time researching the sector with quite a few overlays, and landed in the healthcare space. So, and when went about curating a database of every company in the sector, and then started a proprietary outreach, so small scale M&A, and landed with a business up the north side of Brisbane.
So for people who don't know what M&A is, it stands for?
Mergers and acquisitions.
Mergers and acquisitions. So you're looking to acquire companies that you can look at and then see what's your universe? How do you determine it's a company you might be interested in?
Yeah, so there's I might even do a segment on that later on, another pod specifically on it, because there's about 15 overlays that I put on it. But in short, looking for companies that are recession resistant was the first key criteria, because I think we're going to have some choppy water over the next 5 to 10.
Yep.
Sectors that have got a tsunami of demand on the way.
Yep.
And also painkiller, not a vitamin, not into shiny object, not into want. I want to have must.
Yep.
In there. And looking for motivated vendors or sellers.
Yeah.
People that really need to move on.
And you like non-sexy stuff, right? Like you like.
I like sexy stuff too, Adam.
Do
sure.
You?
Yeah.
Not talking business.
Yeah. Well, that's it. Not ruling them out either.
Good for you.
Yeah, no, it's non-sexy stuff. But looking for that, as you said, stuff that's business has been around and gone through a GFC, gone through a COVID, gone through a recession or two. And have a good track record with a moat, like your dry flush toilets, so you got some exclusivity around that.
Yep.
But the big arbitrage is finding companies that are still running on a fax machine. and that are using old school marketing methods. So my sort of jam is looking at a business and pulling it apart and saying, right, what's the path to market? How fast can I do this? And generally, high ticket is the other criteria I look for as well. Something with margin in it.
Yeah.
I'm not really into mucking around for stuff that less than $5,000.
Yeah.
And so you can afford to outbid a lot of people online when you got high ticket, and then put in front end marketing funnels and a sales team. That's the model.
Yeah.
And so with that, we landed in this sector, and so far so good.
And you got a business partner as well that works with you, right?
Yeah. So my front end's more so the marketing sales, and he's ops. So
Right.
which works quite well to his strengths and to mine as well.
So you create the top of funnel inbound,
You bet.
and then he sorts out the operations to make sure it's all growing.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you guys want to ask James about his life so far?
What else have you done?
Mate, well, it's a very similar model since about 2000 or more earlier than that. We did maths and English children's proprietary-based software in the maths and English space. So I've had direct sales companies in-home before the internet was around, knocking doors. And again, high ticket, lead, conversion, presentation, sales team. From that through to a lot of info, sold a lot of info in the stock market and Forex space, then property. Same again, we would do project marketing, much like yourself. I think we met when I was at the tail end of that career at Eric. And
Yeah, you were just getting out of some of
yeah,
your deals.
yeah, we did a whole bunch of stuff. So we did that, and then we were like, okay, we're going to sell it. Why don't we go and develop it as well? So we went and grabbed a couple of blocks of land and cut them up from effectively from cow paddock to here's the keys, the full universe. So DA, BA, sales contract, and the builder, and rent the things and finance them and hand the keys over. So that was property, and then. We did a couple of deals together, Adam.
Yep.
You Spy, we got $1 million T-shirt each.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and we built another couple of bits of software as well over that period. Sold those, had a couple of e-com businesses, and that's when I sold that as well. And then hung up the gloves and then said, right, what do I want to look at? And we'll go and buy some old, boring businesses and apply some new age marketing to them. So
some of the stuff you're doing in your current business is just awesome. Like this.
Yeah.
For those watching at home, you're going to, over time, if you keep tuning back into the pod, you're going to learn some really interesting things from James about automating sales processes that work and lead generation funnels that are just, cutting edge and awesome.
Yeah, no, we're having a bit of fun with a couple, and I think it's also testament as you can put a decent lead funnel in a lot of businesses, but if you have a business that's got true demand where they're pulling it out of your hand, it makes you look like a genius when it comes to marketing. So you've got true need, want, and whatnot. Like one of our funnels I'm running at the moment, like a lot of leads online in this sector, they're paying $3.50 a click. I'm getting leads for $3.50. Like that's an opt-in after a 10-question survey, and then get name, email, phone number, and then they're booking a call to speak with one of my guys.
For the same price as other companies are paying for a click, you're getting an actual conversion
into a booked call.
Oh my God.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
That's insane. That's an insane difference. To put that in perspective, I go through hundreds of clicks to get a sale. You're going through.
Yeah. I remember when we were doing a business together, and we were running traffic and spending north of $1 million a month, and we're struggling to get leads for $35 a lead.
A lead.
A lead. So it's again, it's not. You can look like a genius, but when you're in the right market, I think it makes a hell of a lot of difference.
Yeah. So I'm really looking forward over the time, James, with the audience at home. The reason I asked James to join us is because he's so good at building businesses, and that's half of what it takes to create wealth. It's building businesses, which creates two things: equity and cash flow. And then I also wanted you on because of your experience in property. So, you take that money, you invest in real estate, you've had a load of experience there. So I think you're going to add a lot of value to the audience who are looking to get out of the rat race through a side hustle and efficient use of capital. And that's where I might segue to Mark, because Mark, you're an interesting cat as well. You've got like a really fascinating skill set that branches equities as well as real estate and so on. So just maybe tell us a little bit about where'd you start in the world? A little bit about background.
So born and raised in Melbourne. James, I don't know if you remember, we actually met like 15, 20 years ago at Anthony Robbins.
Date with Destiny. I
Destiny,
remember
right?
the conversation outside the lunch break.
And now we're here, so never would have picked that. But so born and raised in Melbourne, and when I was in high school, loved business management. Got a perfect study score in business management. Thought, great, go to university And then after 6 months, I'm like, this is just not for me. I need to get out there and learn from the school of hard knocks. And the hard knocks started to come. So muddled around for maybe 3-4 years in different businesses, running a cafe, tried to start up an advertising newspaper, and just couldn't connect the dots, couldn't make it work. But a friend of mine that I was with a friend at the time, basically she was selling land, and she was telling me how much money she was earning selling land. And I'm like, oh, that sounds interesting. And so I went across and applied for a job with Stockland. And I'd never heard of Stockland. And then I Googled them and realised that they were Australia's largest land developer. And I thought, shit, I've got to get this job, and then, basically started selling land in 2007. I call it the high-paying apprenticeship, because I was basically selling land, investing in land, and started to do my own little small developments. Went out on my own a couple of times. Basically, the developments didn't work, so I had to go back and sell land again. But yeah, that's kind of my story. And then from there, I kind of had this love of the macro picture. Like, I love looking at macro finance. I love looking at the stock market. I love seeing how everything kind of meshes together and how everything in the world is kind of related. And it's just amazing how many things actually are related. So, yeah.
But you sold more than the average land salesman. You sold a bit of land.
Yeah, so I think I sold close to about 3,000 blocks over 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot for anyone to sell of anything, but of land, that's amazing.
Yeah. So it was a little bit of fortune, but obviously there was, a little bit of hunger there as well. But, after 2007, 2008, when the global financial crisis came about, Melbourne introduced a $32,000 home buyers grant, and that kind of really started kickstarting that new home and land market. And I think Queensland's looking at doing something similar here at the moment. And so,
And so you've just had a first baby recently as well?
Yeah, little Frankie Holiday. She's 10 months old, so she's keeping me quite busy.
Yeah.
She's a delight, so yeah.
But you're also an e-com. Tell us a little bit about your activities in e-com. What have you done so far? Where are you selling? Are you selling on Amazon? Are you selling through Shopify? What are you doing?
Yeah, so we obviously learned about Amazon through one of your Reliable seminars. And in 2019, we set up our first brand. So we're selling on Amazon into the USA. It's a home and bedding company.
Yep.
And yeah, that basically does over multiple seven figures at the moment. And we're just about to launch a wellness brand as well, selling on Amazon as well. We haven't taken them off Shopify, onto Shopify yet. So,
still marketplace selling on Amazon.
Yeah, still just Amazon, yeah.
Yeah. And so tell us, what is macro? Like, for people at home who don't know what macro means, like when you say you're looking at the macro picture, give us an example of macro.
Absolutely. So on the way over here, Eric and I are in the car and we're talking about the price of watches. And we're just saying how crazy it was that the price of watches in 2022 went up. But with everything else, they also started to come off. So the share market hit its top in 2022 and then started to come off. Property markets kind of hit their peak at the end of 2022. Amazon businesses, there was a boom in Amazon businesses at the time, and they kind of hit their peak and started to come off. So why is it, what interests me is why is it all these assets peak, run up, and come off at the same time? So I love trying to find out those links.
What are the interrelated activities that are causing these changes?
And then you realize that it's basically cyclical. There's a global debt cycle, there's a global business cycle, and there's a bunch of global cycles that are occurring that are basically touching all things.
So you're going to be our Ray Dalio on this show and help us out with that.
Yeah, they're big shoes to fill. Ray Dalio is a legend, but
that kind of thinking,
but
right?
yeah, definitely, yeah.
Because the average man or woman sitting at home is trying to get out of the hustle, right? Learning these cycles is pretty critical, right? Like, where do you allocate your capital and attention at any one time?
100%. It's 100%. It's like, people in the traditional financial space will have a go at Bitcoin. And it's like, it's all the same thing. Bitcoin is macro. Whether you like Bitcoin or whether you like Apple or whether you like bonds or the different asset classes, they're all interrelated. So yeah, trying not to have that personal preference and just staying curious and open to why things are connected and how they're connected. That's what I love.
Yeah, so a big part of the show and the inspiration for Eric and I is that to help people who are unemployable or aspire to be unemployable to exit. And it comes down to understanding what's going on in the macro picture, whether it's a great time to double down on this or double down on that. And we are going to cover, news stories as it relates to our audience, you guys at home. And sometimes there'll be stuff going on in the equities or the Bitcoin markets or real estate and so on. So we've got a really varied sort of story here.
And people have probably heard this saying, you can't time the market, but there's some untruth to that, because sometimes you actually can if you understand the cycle.
Yeah, you definitely can. Yeah. I mean, you can't. In today's world, it's kind of weird, right? Like, as a macro guy, there must be. Is there any parts that are happening that you go, that shouldn't have made sense, but in hindsight, it kind of does?
Just look at our property prices, right? Like, the rise in interest rates was predictable. You could predict that interest rates had to rise because inflation was so high, but I don't think anyone would have guessed that property prices would have held up so well, right? So there's always things.
There's these other factors that are affecting things.
There's always other factors.
And we're going to dive into that, not today, but in another episode on what's driving Australian property prices at the moment. It's quite fascinating because it involves immigration, it involves a whole bunch of variables that are not immediately obvious. Most people think, it's all interest rate driven or whatever. There's a whole bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All right, what about you, Mr. Machado? What's going on in your neck of the woods? Where did you start? Tell us, you've come to this country from Canada. What made you move? When did you move? Where were you in your life? And let's go from there.
That was in 2007. So my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, decided to come to Australia to finish her last year of uni. And in Canada, what they do is they advertise places like Australia in the middle of the winter in the hallways with an aerial photo, very similar to this, saying, finish your last year of university in Australia. So she did an exchange program. Our relationship was getting serious at the time. So I had to make a decision. Do I, leave my family and, the role I was in at the time, I was 23, to pursue the relationship? Or, do I stay in Canada and keep doing what I'm doing and run the risk of, I always said, I'm not going to lose her to a blonde surfer dude, Aussie. So we came together. We were supposed to be here for about 18 months. And I was telling people, I'm just going to sell T-shirts on the beach and chill out and learn to surf and, just be a beach bum for 18 months.
How old were you at that time?
23.
23.
2000.
So not a lot of capital.
Not a lot of capital, no. The whole beach bum thing lasted about a week. And then my background's in flooring. So I was in sales for a flooring company at the time, which were good friends of ours that owned it. And I was doing quite well, from back then, but just wasn't overly happy. I wasn't very entrepreneurial back then, to be honest with you. I was really good at sales. I was a really confident kid. I started selling at my uncle's flooring shop at 14. Back then, before online was a big thing. People would walk in off the street and, I need hardwood done, I need carpet done, and you're selling. So a 14-year-old kid selling to adults, so that really built my confidence up. So when I got here, I applied for a couple jobs.
You're on the Gold Coast.
On the Gold Coast, yeah. We arrived on the Gold Coast. She went to Griffith. We landed in Surfer's Paradise because that's what us foreigners look at, Gold Coast, and it's Surfer's Paradise. So landed in the middle of Surfer's Paradise, stayed in a hotel for a couple nights, and then just looked for a place. And during that time, I started looking for a job. And I actually applied for a job at the Harvey Norman Flooring Center in Bundall.
Wow.
And for a management position at 23, which I thought, this is going to be an ideal job. And I got the job, funny enough. And 2 days before I started, I sat down with Jen. I said, you know what? Just something in my gut's telling me not to take this job because I feel like if I do it, I already know this. I want to challenge myself a little bit. And I rang the guy, and he was very upset because, on 2 days' notice, I said, I'm not taking the job. Then I went back to the drawing board and started looking in the newspaper. And, Seek wasn't a big thing back then. And started doing different interviews, a lot of different positions. And I seen one in the shower screen and wardrobe. business in Yatala, I called it back then. So I was asking people, how do you get to Yatala? And they're like, where? What do you mean Yatala? And they pronounce it Yatla.
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 Yatla, mate.
So I rented a car, went for an interview down to Yatla, sat down with one of the directors of the business that interviewed me, and got the job. And I started, and it was a small retainer role, and then plus commissions. And I didn't have a car at the time, so I actually had to get a loan from Canada, and bought a $10,000 white Ford Falcon.
Nice.
The Australian
Very
dream.
Australian. The
The
Aussie
Australian
dream. The Aussie dream.
Right? Because the position didn't come with a car or mobile phone or fuel, so I had to do that on my own. And then they said, once you hit a certain amount of commission, that retainer will become obsolete and you'll just be on straight commission. So I pounded the pavement with my Refidex, looking because GPS wasn't a big thing back then. So here I am looking at, C page 20, C40. All right, that's where I'm going. And
So you were just cold calling a business.
I was cold calling. Yeah, I didn't get any leads. I was cold calling. So what I did is I went to the back of the yellow pages back then and started calling builders for and expressing my interest on tendering their projects, from home builders to renovators to some retail and eventually high-rise buildings. So I recall times where Jen and I would drive through Mermaid Beach, Burleigh, Broad Beach, and she'd have the notebook and a pen, and I would look for scaffolding or, building fencing, and I'd read her the builder, email, phone number, and she'd write down the details, and then the next day I would just
Smash the
phone.
phone.
I'd walk onto sites and introduce myself. And obviously with a thick Canadian accent back then, my accent's changed a little bit over time. I think that's what really helped me stick out, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And that's why I try and still hold on to my accent as much as I can.
You got a weird accent, bro.
Yeah, honestly. it's like a bastard child of an accent now. Bit of a mix. So, one thing led to another, and I started getting some good success doing that. And I was just saving money. We were just in a one-bedroom apartment. We didn't live fancy. Jen worked part-time at City Beach, which is a surf shop here in Australia, for all my Canadian fans watching this.
Both of them.
Yeah.
And fans is a strong word.
For my
mum and
three
dad.
Three Canadian fans.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
So Jen's working at City Beach, and you're literally going door to door as an immigrant. You don't know the difference between Yatla and Yatala.
No.
And you're driving around a Ford
Driving
Falcon.
around, yep. And then
I love this story.
yeah, just kept driving around and, broadened my areas and started to learn a little bit about Brisbane and Sunny Coast. And in the back of the papers back then, they'd have an area for tenders. So people like Hutchinson Builders and Multiplex and stuff would actually advertise the tenders on the back of the paper. So they'd say, Hutchinson Builders, Broad Beach, Alexandria Avenue, 86 units, and with an email, right? And then you'd send your expression of interest, and I would just follow up. So people always ask me, like, what's the biggest thing that you were successful at back then that made you different? And I'm like, follow up. No one calls back in this country. Even till this day, the amount of people that I get to come to the house for a quote or do something, and they actually come, they show up, and then you just don't hear from them.
Yeah.
So I seen this very early on, right? So I just followed up and I outworked a lot of people. And within a couple of years, I was earning, multi-six-figure income back then, which was a lot of money. But what I didn't do was spend on extravagant things. What I did was invested in real estate and invested in business. When I first came to Australia, I don't know, the fancy cars, the condominiums, the apartments, the beach, just opened my eyes to, a different type of lifestyle, different type of opportunity. Where I come from is very blue collar. A place called Cambridge, Ontario in Canada. It's about an hour west of Toronto, and it's just a blue collar town. And but it's great, you know. My dad's construction worker when I was a kid, you know, and then he got into tiling. My mom, you know, has worked in a factory all her life. They come here as immigrants from Portugal, you know, raised fairly poorly, but always had food and, you know, clothing and shelter. And my parents did as much for me as they possibly could. They put me in sport most of my life. So I played pretty competitive ice hockey and baseball, which I think that really made me show up, you know. Like, you're not late for a hockey game. You're not late for a practice. You're not like, I'm the guy that's like on time all the time.
So how did you segue into your own business? Where did that happen? And where, like, today you're an investor. For those of people watching who don't know, you've got a pretty substantial portfolio now of investments. Some of them quite successful. So how did you segue into, let's say, MX or one of the deals that you're in now?
Yeah. So MX as an example. So back when I started earning a bit of money.
Yeah.
And I started investing in a couple properties.
Yeah.
And my finance broker at the time, she was a very good networker.
Yeah.
She was going to a lot of networking events. Like, she was part of BNI, you know, the BNI groups and stuff like that. So one of our meetings, I just said, listen, I kind of jumped on the online bandwagon back then, just thinking like, this online space is growing. It's new.
Yeah.
I'd love to get involved in it somehow, but I'm not a tech guy, right, at all. So I asked her, I said, listen, if you know anybody that's looking for investment in an online business, let me know. A couple of weeks later, I got a phone call. She's like, I want to introduce you to someone. And that's when I got introduced to Jake, who's my business partner, and a couple of the other partners that were there at the time. They showed me a very fancy prospectus, which is basically a, you know, glossy brochure saying this is who we are, this is what we're doing, this is how we're going to do it.
And for the audience at home, what is MX? What were they doing?
So
tell us
MX
about
Store is an online business in the motocross parts and accessories, motocross gear business. Back then, they started off as a drop ship model in a very tiny office, half the size of this space, probably a third of this space, to be honest with you, which is quite small. And at the time, they started picking up some momentum in the online space. You know, we're talking 13, 14 years ago, right? So it's quite a while ago. And online's grown a lot since then. But, you know, capturing that in that moment, like, it's hard to look back and see where the online space was at. Like, I was still using a Refidex. You know what I mean? Like, this is where we're at.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, there's
People
no
look
such
at it
thing
today.
as GPS in a car back then, you know?
Yeah. You look at it today and people see, you know, the huge warehouse and 170 employees or whatever.
Yeah.
But back then it would have been like, you would have
tiny.
no idea that it was going to go to that level.
No. So what happened was they were having a little bit of success with the dropship model, but back then it was all cowboys with physical retail stores. And the guys with the physical retail stores, the owners, complained to a lot of the suppliers saying, hey, these guys don't have a store, no bricks and mortar. They just got an online shop. You know, it's not fair.
They're undercutting us.
They're undercutting us. So it came to a point where, you know, it was either getting supply on certain brands, which you'd have to sell to grow. So they had to make a decision and set up a proper shop front, hold stock, POS systems, staff. And at the end, you know, back then they were quite young as well. You know, they were in their early 20s, late teens, early 20s. So that's where that relationship started. And meeting after meeting, I then took the punt and invested a fair bit of money back then, which is still a fair bit of money today. And I was involved, you know, from the beginning, not day to day, but obviously when you're investing that kind of money, you want to keep a finger on the pulse.
Was this your first major investment in Australia?
First major investment, yep. Other than what I was doing is investing in some property in Canada. So I was making money here and then buying property in Canada because I didn't know the property space here too well.
Yeah.
So the first major one in Australia. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And you lucked out with those guys as partners, right? Like, they're solid guys.
Yeah, solid guys. I mean, we've had some ups and downs over that time. There's been partners that have come and partners that have gone over time that have got bought out and whatnot. But what people see now is, you know, they see the warehouse, they see the, you know, I get people sending me all the time, you know, stickers on the back of utes and the car windows and stuff like, oh, look,
What are
there's
the
another
metrics
one.
now? What are some of the metrics now around the business for people?
Yeah, it's now a 9-figure business.
Yeah.
Which is probably one of the bigger online businesses in the country, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
The boys have always flown under the radar. MX was never created for money. It was to make riding more accessible and make it safer. You know, so there's big core values in the business. And yeah, we range between 160 to 180 staff, depending on time of year.
Yep.
We've got a floor space now of about 6,000 square meters in Burleigh Heads. So we pack, everything is in-house.
It's amazing, right? As a Gold Coaster, I mean, James, you've been here a while as well. The industry and these companies just weren't here 10 years ago. Right in Burleigh, we've got High Smile, which is a massive, probably $1 billion
business.
company now. You guys, we got, is LSKD? That's in
They're
Brisbane.
Near Logan,
They're in Brisbane.
Yatala area.
Yeah, that's now a $100 billion company as well.
Yeah. They're doing really well.
And these guys are all in this
On
sort
one
of
brand.
southeast corner. It used to be down in your neck of the woods, Mark, where it was all Melbourne and Sydney, but it seems to be changing.
I think the world's changed a lot since COVID as well. Like we came up and lived here for 8 months during 2021, and we're like, wow, what are we doing? What are we doing in Melbourne? And I think there's a lot of people that have kind of realised after COVID, when they don't have to go to meetings physically and they can do a Zoom call or they can work from home or work remotely, that this is a place to be. So there's a real entrepreneurial community building here. Even Byron Bay, for such a small town, has, you know, per capita probably so many millionaire entrepreneurs. But yeah, they're really starting to group here. And
it's funny. Someone told me before, they're like, the Gold Coast is the best place to live if you can make money.
Yeah.
Right? Because what happens is a lot of the corporates, you know, you go to school, you go to uni, you get a job, and a lot of them go to Sydney, a lot of them go to Melbourne because that's where the corporate money is. Like, Gold Coast is not built off corporates, right?
No.
Gold Coast is built off entrepreneurial skills, you know, and it's amazing what we've seen
Well,
the other week at
the
that,
charity.
Yeah, the
function.
charity, you know, saying that,
Shout out to those guys.
you know, the GDP of the Gold Coast, like, third is manufacturing.
Third largest
Third
is
largest.
manufacturing.
It
Yeah.
blew my mind, right?
Industry, third largest industry in
Yeah.
the Gold Coast now manufacturing, which is incredible.
Because we used to be just predominantly property and hospitality. That was it.
Yeah.
Yeah, tourism, you know?
Yeah.
And like you were saying, when you guys started MX, like online was new. Today, in a period of 10 to 15 years, we have so many more tools. And now with AI, you know, the average person is also realizing that they can be part of this.
Totally.
Right. And the tools are there for anyone to kind of start a unicorn business pretty quick. That, and there's going to be a huge transfer of wealth over the next 10 to 15 years as elder boomers start to kind of, you know, hand that wealth over. So that there's the tools, there's the money, and there's the opportunity. And now with social media, like when we first started with Reliable, we were so drawn to the community, and social media has allowed kind of like those satellite communities to pop up. Whereas previously, you didn't know where people like you were in the world. Now you can find them, and you can
build relationships.
Build relationships, right? Kind of like what everyone here has done. And
that's partly your point about the migration of wealth with boomers. That's sort of what's
That's
your
exactly
space, because James is going to be buying these fax machine businesses, as you call them.
Yep.
That's going to be such a growing space.
Yeah, and also, as I said before, finding motivated sellers. Like they can't work forever. And if you're not looking for the shiny object businesses or the sexy businesses, there's often not succession planning in there as well. So they're literally just throwing the keys back and walking away.
I think Cody Sanchez said it the other day. She says, I love it when I walk into a business and I see a fax machine. I know I'm in. Like that's my dream business right there.
100%. And especially simple businesses as well. You know, the sector we're looking at, there's a lot of boomer businesses that are not super specialist. So if you've got half a brain when it comes to marketing and putting in new sales and marketing systems, it's a large opportunity.
When I sold my animation company in LA, I asked the broker, what's the most profitable business or the best business that you've ever seen that you've sold?
Yeah.
And it was selling rope.
yeah,
Right? Like he said, these guys were selling rope to ships, like not just boats, but like like cruise liners and stuff. And I was like, wow, like who would have thought? Another guy that was selling, those on the runway with the plane stairs. You know, like who would have thought? It's so interesting.
Yeah. There's a business down here just recently. My business partner looked into it a while back, and he had the market tied up. He was selling golf cart cabling,
Wow.
and it was like 2 million net and like 2 staff. We were business with a few more staff than that, but who would have thought about selling golf cart cabling on the Gold Coast as a bespoke type of business and pulling 2 bricks a year out of it?
Yeah.
It's like, how many golf carts from the Gold Coast?
I know. More than you'd think. Up to Sanctuary Cove sometime and have a look.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's heaps up there. Right?
So, Eric, you started and you had your first win with MX. You basically invested your cash that you were hustling on the street to get, going door to door, selling doors and windows.
Yeah.
And you partnered with some great guys. I've met them. They're legendary guys, super humble, down to earth. MX started to work. But since then, you've invested, your profits and you're in a whole bunch of other stuff. Do you want to share just a couple other businesses that you have backed or started or that you own?
So I'm a partner in a business called Gold Coast Luxury Resorts and Gold Coast Rental Properties. So a very dear friend of mine. I've been partners in that for probably about 8 or 9 years. Mm-hmm. There was an opportunity to invest in that at the time. Did some due diligence. There was multiple reasons for it at the time. And took the plunge again and did my due diligence and invested wisely. And the business is growing. It's
doing well.
One of the biggest offsite operators on the Gold Coast. My business partner Chris in that he's an unbelievable operator.
Legend.
That's his one thing. He doesn't do anything else. That's what he does. That's what he knows, and that's big reason for the success of the business. We've now got a couple other guys that we've brought in as well, and they're taking it to the next level and helping out, which is amazing. So the team is growing.
So what does that business do exactly?
So we're in competition with on-site managers. So when you look at, as an example, Oracle, like here, the developer will build the buildings, and then they'll sell the management rights. And in Australia, you think of Peppers and Mantra as an example. So they'll sell the management rights for millions of dollars, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a key. Well, all they're getting is a management agreement, right? So they're only stuck into that management agreement for a period of time. Where we come in, right, is we compete with someone like Peppers. So Peppers, they buy the management rights, but it's a publicly traded company, right? So they have to make sure that they earn enough money to pay, obviously, shareholders and whatnot. And they've paid a lot of money for the actual management rights. Where we come is we do the exact same thing as what they do, except offsite. So we haven't paid for any management rights, which means we can offer a better commission rate, a better structure to the owner of the property, which then means we could be more competitive on the nightly rate on the back end.
So you manage, or if I owned a property
Yep.
and I gave it to you to manage,
Yes.
you would then put that property onto booking.com,
Correct.
Airbnb, you would
Yep.
manage the booking, manage the cleaning, manage the whole thing.
Everything.
And then you take a fee.
Yeah, we take a fee, and then you guys get paid every month.
And it's better for me as an owner to get you to manage it than it is for me to put it in the long-term rental pool.
Correct.
Okay.
And you have access to it, right?
So
So
you're
it's
responsible for the
long-term.
housing shortage, basically.
We are, and this is something that we've been talking about before. Going, with the property prices going up and lack of supply, what people aren't thinking about is stuff like divorce. Divorce rates are at all-time highs.
Yeah.
What happens when people divorce? Wife needs somewhere to live. Husband needs somewhere to live. All of a sudden, you need 2 houses or 2 units, not 1. How many units are being taken off the market to Airbnb? Right? How many units are just being locked up from overseas investors, as an example?
And that's in addition to the obvious of having, like, the last 12 months, 500,000 people migrating to Australia permanently, immigrating permanently.
And to me, this is, touching back on the point where, why is house prices why are they so stable and actually going up at the moment? If you look at the stats, there's a lot of this reasoning and
It's economics 101, right? So you've got property divorce rates going up, you've got people coming in, and you've got properties disappearing off the rental market.
Correct.
We can't build fast enough. I mean, you might have some numbers on that market. Can we build fast enough?
We can't. And now, with everything that's going on in the world, the cost to build is also a problem. So many builders have gone bust because of that. Labor is becoming a problem. This is why inflation is such a touchy subject. And
immigration as well.
Who was it that got news time recently? Gurner.
Yeah.
He basically spoke the truth. I mean, he did it in a way that probably wasn't very delicate, but what he was saying is very true. That if wages keep going up and it's hard to get labourers, more businesses are going to go bust. So yeah, we can't build enough.
Mm. And the knock-on effect of it, right? Like, because you're Canadian, and maybe you can give me some feedback on this, but Canada's been quite liberal with their views of like immigration as well. And you guys immigrated a lot of people, which Australia is built on immigration. Let's face it, we need it. That's a big part of keeping our property prices up.
Yeah.
But what happened in Canada? Like, I mean, a lot of Canadians, when I put up a post recently on Insta about immigration, a lot of Canadians go, just make sure you don't go the way that we did because of all these problems. Are you seeing it when you go home?
There's a massive amount of immigration that has happened in Canada from multiple.
How do you see that? Is there a negative side to it? Can you see it when you're there or not?
You know what? The way I look at it is this. I look at my parents, right, that immigrated to Canada back in the late 60s, early, late 60s, mid to late 60s. And they were the workers, right? They came in and they worked. They took the factory jobs, they took the laboring jobs, construction jobs, that European, massive amount of immigration, right? Now I see, you fast forward, 40 years as an example, 40, 50 years, and things have changed massively, right? And they are now, their kids, myself as an example, are second generation and then there's third generation. And I just don't see them wanting to do the work that my parents did. Like, I don't want to be a construction worker and work in minus 15 degree. Like I literally remember my dad coming home with a mustache, right? With snots literally frozen to his mustache on a daily basis in the winter. Yeah. That's how he came home.
Yeah.
Like I looked at that going, got to be a better way.
No wonder they don't want to do that themselves. Like,
you know what I mean?
But was there a housing shortage is what I'm getting at. Is there a housing shortage in Canada that you see, like there's homelessness and stuff like that? Or
there's definitely a housing shortage, but I think a lot of the immigrants that are coming in, right, are coming in with the same mindset as like what my parents came in.
Yeah.
They're coming here to work.
Yeah.
Right? The typical Canadian family or Western family, right? We don't want to share a house together. I want my own space. I want my own house. The people that are immigrating now are happy to share houses, multiple people in a house, multiple families, and they're all investing together. Here, people don't want to invest together because like, oh no, you might screw me over. With them, it's part of their culture.
Yeah, Australians very individualistic, frontier type people.
So that's why Canadians and Australians get on, right? Because we're very similar, but the same thing's happening in Canada, but they've went very, very heavy, and people are complaining about it. But the people that are complaining about it, a lot of the ones are the ones that don't want to make change or don't want to do the jobs that other people are coming in. As an example, our cleaning crew are Brazilians.
Here,
yeah, Aussies, as an example, I don't want to say just Aussies, but like Westernized people, right? Don't want to do that type of work.
Yeah.
Like you look at one of the students, Desley, as an example. She can't get workers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I think restaurant owners listening to this would be the same. I know where most coffee shops I go to now, I'm served by people who are here on visas or whatever. Yeah. Do a great job. And I just wonder about that sector wouldn't even be able to survive probably post-COVID.
With us when we're recruiting lately, it's been, when we put a job ad up, depending where we post it, if it's remote, it's a bit different. But just you can see who the immigrants are just by the name and through the interview process. Australians don't want to do, we've got warehousing, we do just pick, pack and ship and dispatch as well. And finding the Aussie that's going to put their hand up and work in that environment is starting to become very, very few and far between.
Mark?
Yeah, I was just I think millennials definitely get a bit of a bad rap, but there are a lot of young people out there, Australian people, that want to work.
Yeah.
I think the difference is like you said, it's a mentality, right? Like, so back in the 40s and 50s, they were coming from Greece and Italy. Now they're coming from, China, India, and different places. Australia's been very stable for a very long time. These places after the war, their currencies weren't so stable. So they realized, hey, we have to buy property. We have to buy assets. Otherwise, our money's basically going to be devalued. Now, they probably didn't know it cognitively, but they felt it, right? Because the price of everything was going up. So they came with a mentality, yes, we want to work, we want to make a life. but it was that mentality to put money into assets. Australia and Canada, the local population, it's been so stable here forever that I don't think that I mean, property is a massive pastime here, but it's not as ingrained as what it is to get every single dollar that you've got and put it into property to set yourself up. We want to go on holidays. We want to travel. We want to enjoy our lives.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, again, this will be a subject we're going to dive into in an episode soon, but for young people today, it's just not even realistic because of how much it's moved, you know, in terms of property prices just way outstripping their ability to keep up, which is a note for another day. But I think you are right. I mean, there are definitely Australians that want to work, but the world's changed so much too, you know, like why would you want to go and do hard labor when you see Logan Paul making $10 million for a boxing match? Well, I want to be an influencer. Or you see all the girls on OnlyFans, like why wouldn't you just do that? Like when you're young and you're not, you know, fully developed maybe, or thought deeply about the future, or had the proper guidance, that, you know, that could be a much more appealing route to a young person. I'm not saying I would have been any different had I had the same opportunities, you know. But Eric, I mean, the positive that I get out of hearing your story is, I mean, I say I'm Australian, but my parents were immigrants, right? Like every Australian's only 2 or 3 generations of being an immigrant themselves. What I love about your story is I know right now there's 175 people in Burleigh that are all employed because you came and put up money with a couple of Aussie entrepreneurs, what we'd call Aussies.
Yeah.
You backed them, and you guys went together and created massive value to the economy. I think about how much tax that company pays in corporate tax.
Yeah, massive amount.
Payroll tax for those people. You know, you're a great case for quality immigration.
A lot of weekly wages going up. But I guess what a lot of people don't see is, you know, the 10 years of,
oh no, you're lucky,
the
mate.
ups and the downs.
Don't you know that?
You know, the sleepless nights.
No, it's just luck, mate.
You know?
You're just lucky.
Yeah. You know, it's going
easy
like,
for you
what
to
have
say.
what have I done? You know, the hard decisions that have had to be made. You know, there was times where, you know, a decision came down to my, you know, last, you know, decision came on me to, you know, can't really say it, but, you know, and you got to say yes or no.
Yeah.
You know, and you got to flip the coin.
Yeah.
Within reason, you know, but I always go with my gut, with my intuition on a lot of things, you know, like even when I first met you, like I still, you know, remember the day that I met you. I remember the phone call that I got, and, you know, just building that relationship over time, my intuition just told me, you know, like you're a good guy, you're, you know, and successful guy. And that's who I want to surround myself with, you know, and add value to each other's lives. And I think that's a big thing in business. It's not just about money.
No,
MX
totally.
is never about money.
No. Well, you get that feeling when you meet the guys, you know.
Yeah.
They're
You know.
so big on culture down there, and you can feel it when you go through the factory.
Yeah.
You've got some incredibly powerful systems in place, but those powerful systems extend to people as well.
Correct.
And you can see people are fulfilled in their work, and there's a sense of culture and meaning and good vibes, which is why you guys are successful.
Yeah, and that's what I look at in different businesses, you know, like I look at gaps and really I invest in people, right? Like that's the main thing.
Yeah.
And I've had a good run at it, and I feel like I've always been very street smart,
Yeah.
right? And not very naive.
Yeah.
So like when it's too good to be true for me, it's too
Yeah.
good, you know? And yeah, I've had a good run, knock on wood, and hopefully it continues that way. But sometimes, you know, it gets stressful at times as well.
And for those watching, Eric's done a whole bunch of other stuff, which we'll get into over time around property as well.
Yep.
You've developed property, renovated property, started with apartments. You've built 15-story towers now.
Yeah, we've got a real estate business, the project marketing business as an example, and you know, which we'll get into, I'm sure,
over time.
At some time. But yeah.
Eric, what would you say your superpower is?
Connecting dots.
In people.
Connecting dots and putting people in touch. I've added value in James as an example in his business. He gave me a ring and said, hey, I'm looking for someone to do this role. And I had a call the week before of someone else saying, hey, do you know anyone that has a role doing this? And I'm like, actually, and you know, like this is what I do. You know what I mean?
And I think
like
that's partly being an immigrant, right? Like when you come in, you hadn't had your girls at that point, right?
No.
Just Jen, right?
Yeah.
But when you come in and you've got to make a way in a country that's, I mean, it's probably when you got off the plane, right? And you get to Surfers Paradise. What was that feeling like? I mean, coming from Canada. Had you been here before,
I
or
was
just seen
honestly,
the brochures?
it felt hot,
Yeah.
sweaty.
Yeah.
Honestly, but it was
Awesome.
exciting. It was
Yeah.
exciting.
So
know?
you come to this country, everything's brand new. There's that
Everything's
level of
brand new.
excitement, but you've got to hustle and you've got to get to know
Hustle,
people and
yeah,
nurture relationships.
like we came with not a lot of money, man. Like
Yeah.
like people don't understand. Like it's.
I mean,
didn't
imagine the
come with
shoe on the
bags
other
of
foot.
Cash, you know what I
Imagine
mean?
going
Like,
to Canada and like trudging around, not
we
knowing
didn't know
anybody.
anyone. We didn't know one person. Like
Yeah.
we landed in the middle of surfer's paradise. We didn't know one person. We know two things. We knew one thing for sure was Jen was going to university the next week.
Yeah,
That's what we
it's going to Griffith Uni,
Right, it's going to
and you're
Griffith
out there
Uni,
knocking doors selling
right?
shower
And
screens.
I got to decide what I'm going to do, right? And I'm like, oh, I'm just going to sell T-shirts, chill out, you know. Which, like I said, lasted a week and went bananas. And
So for all of our immigrant friends that are watching this, know that we here at Unemployable are so stoked to have you here, and we believe in you because, you know, we're very pro people who want to work and add value and create businesses, create jobs, and add value to this country. It's not here yet, but shortly in this corner, you're going to see a 6'2" kangaroo, boxing kangaroo. We'll have a naming contest for it, but that's what Australia's all about, right? A home of wealth and toil, where if you put in the work, you can actually create wealth. And I still believe that's true today. In fact, I believe it's truer today than it's ever been, which is, I'm going to ask you guys while I just do this little bit, why you wanted to come on Unemployable, because none of us are getting paid to do this. And I'd like you to think about, as we wind this first episode up, why did you come on? What message? Because right now we have people watching this that have immigrated to this great country. We have young people watching this that are aspiring to do something. I imagine if they're here, they're interested in doing well in life. We have families in the struggle. Some of them are on their way to work in a car or on the train. Some of them are at work, hating their life. And many of them are in the struggle of small business, and it is a struggle. So what is it that you want to, contribute to their lives? And for me, guys, I asked Eric to join me initially, and Eric agreed. And then I convinced these two guys because I think they have massive value as well. We just believe in people, and we want to share as much as we can about how to actually get out of this deal of the rat race. If you hate your job, if you hate your job and you don't feel that you're getting the most out of your life, how do you actually exit, and how do you make that happen? And so we're going to share with you and bring people on and guests on that can really speak positivity and strategy and mistakes into your life. But I just want you to know that, sitting there, no matter where you are right now, we have all at this table gotten to where we are from. Does anybody have a degree? Do you have a degree?
No.
I have a college diploma. I did 3 years in marketing, but it was just college,
Not university. Do you have a degree, Mark?
No. I lasted 6 months.
6 months?
No, not at all.
No. So there's no degrees. Like they say, nothing has more degrees than a thermometer, and you stick that up your bum. So, even if people have said you're not that bright or whatever, there's a lot of people that are pretty dumb that have done really well just by learning the right things. So, that's why I'm here anyway. I just want to really inspire people to do better. What about you, Mark? Like, what floats your boat about this whole idea of creating a pod for people that's Australian focused originally and then much bigger, hopefully, in time?
I mean, it's that whole spirit and attitude of wanting to have a crack.
Yeah.
I've always been someone who's tried to have a crack at things and tried to encourage other people to have a crack at things and just give things a go, and for it to be okay to fail. And I think, sometimes we watch podcasts or we watch our favorite celebrity running these days, entrepreneurs are celebrities. We watch them running a business or starting a business, and we put them on a pedestal and think, it's okay for them, but I can't do that. And then as you start to run businesses or give things a go or fail or even have successes, you realize that that failure is all part of the journey. That imposter syndrome is all part of the journey. That it doesn't matter whether you're in a room of people who are have got $50,000 businesses or $50 million businesses. We're all feeling the same feelings. We all kind of have the same self-doubt, and we go through the same experiences. So, yeah, I guess just the opportunity to talk about that stuff in a transparent and in a real way, I think is enticing.
Yeah. Yeah, you figure out pretty quick, right, that nobody's going to give you permission. It's like you're on your own there. You got to step up. You got to have a crack. You got to be prepared to fail. And none of us except Eric get through without not failing, right? This little bugger over here.
Yeah.
What about you, James? What do
Yeah,
you love about this whole concept?
Yeah, echoing what Mark said there as well, and that permission to fail and and get back up again. But if we can shed some light to the people at home, because entrepreneurialism is a pretty lonely sport. Even when you're in business with someone else, there's still elements that you just go, who do I talk to? Who's going to answer that question? Who's been there before? Who's got the scar tissue? And just the opportunity to share, I suppose. But also, who do we get to meet along the way on the journey?
Yeah.
Like the Rolodex of people that are coming on the show is going to be pretty compelling to be around this environment. So there's that, and just if we can help people along the way, if I can just help one person put their head back together after it's been pulled apart from what we call the brown trousers moment in business.
Yeah.
We all have them, and we have them regularly. So yeah, just
Doesn't stop.
Doesn't stop.
If you're watching this on YouTube, guys, drop a comment below. We will read them about what you would like to hear from any one of us or as a group. Like, how can we serve you best out there in the community? What kind of content would you like? What kind of guest would you like? And what would you like this podcast to be that is not being delivered elsewhere? This is definitely going to have an Australian flavour because we're Aussies, but I really believe that Aussie entrepreneurs punch above their weight because of where we are. When I moved to America, I was like, people were like, dude, like, because I was an immigrant at that time, and people were like, man, I've never seen somebody work so hard as you. And I'm like, you guys don't realize how lucky you have it. You got 50 million people now, I think, in the US. To have this many people in your backyard that you can sell stuff to is just insane. And I think Aussies are really innovative, and our Kiwi friends as well, super innovative. We've just got to get in and have a red hot crack, and get after it. Eric, what about you? What floats your boat most about being here on Unemployable?
I guess it's giving people hope.
Yeah.
I see a lot of people, and a lot of people in my mind are walking dead out there, stuck in a routine, unhappy in many ways in life. And I want to instill belief in people, right? That the magic happens out of the comfort zone, because for me, I didn't have a crutch. There was no fallback. My fallback was if it didn't work out, I could go move back home with my parents because I was living with my parents. That's my fallback. That was my crutch. I knew I had food and a place to live. Yeah. But I didn't have anything else other than that. And I want to instill confidence in people.
Yeah.
I was raised as a very confident kid in sport.
Yeah.
Right. My parents were my biggest fans, and having the confidence to speak up and shake someone's hand and say hello to them in an elevator, as an example, can change everything. Yeah. And that's probably another superpower of mine is networking. Yeah. And then that's why people ring me and say, hey, do you know anyone that's doing this? Because they probably know I know someone that does, as an example.
Yeah.
That I used earlier. But yeah, so giving people hope, instilling belief, and building people's confidence.
Yeah. And I want all four of us to push our guests and each other to get into one thing I know with pods is I don't like it when stuff is skimmed over. I want to get into details. I want to get the metrics and understand the system, stuff that I can actually take away. So let's make a pact to try and really do that so that people watching can go, man, that actually, I get that all the way through, and I sort of keep it at a high level where we can. If we're doing something that's working, we've got to guess it's got something that's working. Let's really drill into it. And I think one thing we've got to, as a nation in Australia, and I've been on this journey myself, we tend to sort of think that, we've got to keep it, and there are certain parts of things you got to keep, but there's also, something to be said for an abundance mentality, getting people the best advice we can with as much specific example as we can so that it becomes something that's a resource, an actionable resource. But guys, we'll be watching the comments. This is our first ever podcast, ever. For amateurs, giving it a crack, but I reckon we'll get good at this as time goes by. If you've watched this long, we thank you very much. All I ask is that you like and subscribe. We're going to have to say this every time, right? What do they say now? Smash the like button. They don't say like the like button. It's smash the like button. So the reason, guys, that we want you to subscribe is very, very simple. The more subscribers we have, the better the quality of guest we're going to be able to attract for you. Yeah. That's the metric in the YouTube world. or any world these days. So if you have enjoyed this very, very early, probably the worst pod we'll ever do version, like and subscribe. You can be one of the first to join the army of unemployable people that we're hoping to build around the world. But please like and subscribe and share it with your friends. And it's going to be a fun ride. So thank you for tuning in, guys. Thanks for being here. It's awesome to be rolling.
Appreciate it.
And just a quick shout out to our cameraman, Greg. Thank you for being here, man.
Yeah.
We're going to get a camera on Greg at some point as well because he's the best looking of all four of us.
Let's get him, Mike. He's got a great voice too.
Hopefully you can touch us up, make us look better than what we actually are.
He'll do what he can. he's not a magician.
Silk purse pigsy, you know.
Yeah, that's it. You heard the say. All right, guys. Thanks again. Subscribe, hit the button, and thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Yeah.